The film opened in Sundance and the Edinburgh Film Festival. If you can tell us a little bit about the reaction of the audience.
David and I and Kelly, who will be here momentarily, were in Sundance along with other members of the cast and crew, and it was really a lovely response by the audience. We screened in front of 1,300 people, and they stayed for 20 minutes right to the end of the Q&A, and they loved the performances, and so it was quite heartening. And then Edinburgh, we opened the festival in front of 3,000 of our friends, and that was also a really lovely experience.
I see Mr. Denman here, and what I see is Logan Lucky. So it's funny seeing you playing the role of Louis, a wonderful character with a very limited horizon. Yeah, how did you feel playing that role?
Well, I just want to iterate. Thank you all for being here. Seriously, this is pretty cool. I felt great about playing Louis. You know, I like playing characters who, you know, are complicated in the sense that he only sees sort of one version of his wife. He doesn't really see who she, you know, is, other than kind of his needs of who she is. And you know, as artists, I believe it's our job to try to illuminate the human condition, and I felt like I know a lot of people who you know, have relationships like this that aren't as evolved as we would all like them to be sometimes. And you know, Marc and I talked quite a bit about trying to not just be one-sided with this guy, to try to show a little bit of humanity of his, you know, love for his wife and appreciation for her, but just a lack of knowledge about who she is. And you know, part of that too is she's coming into her own of, like, you know, I've never seen a coming of age story for a woman in her 40s that I can remember. And I thought it was really cool when I read the script. I thought that was so unique, and I love the idea of telling that story. I love the idea of working with Kelly Macdonald, who's an amazing actress, as you all know, and Irfan Khan as well, although I didn't get to work with him. We just had lunches together. But he's amazing as well. So, you know, when it came across from my agent, I was like, 100% I'm in, you know. This is amazing.
And can you tell us a little bit about the origin of the project, Mr. Turtletaub? How you came to it?
Sure. Well, I got it as a screenplay. We didn't develop it internally. It was developed in another production company, and then they sent it to me, knowing I was looking for a film to direct. It was based on an Argentinian film from 2010 by Natalia Smirnov. Natalia came to the set, and I think she likes this adaptation very well. But I intentionally didn't want to watch her film. I had never seen it because I wanted to bring my own interpretation to the screenplay. And so I read it, and like David, I was taken with the writing, taken with the subject matter. It's so rare. And as soon as I read it, I said, this is a story I have to tell.
And with the filmmaker, Orin Moberman, what did he say about there are interesting changes and challenges in this adaptation? The film played at Berlin. It's an Argentine-French production. Right. First feature film directed by Natalia Smirnov, who's a disciple of sorts of Lucrecia Martel. So it's a minimalist story, and implied there is a critique of the behaviors of the Argentine middle class. Mm-hmm. There's a change of setting here. There are interesting changes. So how aware were you of those?
I wasn't aware because I didn't read the original screenplay, didn't watch the original movie until I completely finished this movie. As I then watched it, of course, and in her version, Agnes goes back to her husband in the end, as you undoubtedly know. And there are a number of other changes. I think the whole sort of Easter sort of symbolism, I think, is more heavily emphasized in the Argentinian version. But Orin wrote a version for today and for America.
I just want to add to that, like, you know, scripts evolve and change as you film them. And there was a version of this when they were together at the end. And as we were filming it, I and Mark had a lot of conversations about this, and I just kept saying, I just don't know if you earn this, that you want them to be together, because of the way our story is unfolding, that like you kind of have to maybe consider another alternative. And he was totally open to it and was like, it's possible, we're going to keep going down this road. And sure enough, I didn't know how the movie ended till I saw it in Sundance. And I was like, that's how this movie should end.
What's interesting about your journey is that it's an interior journey. It's a journey where there are not that many landmarks that would say that you can look at them and say, well, this is, a big event that happened. So how did you construct that character made of silence, of looks, of ways of, shopping, of putting the puzzles together? How did you build your character?
Well, I luckily don't have to do that. Writers do that for me. And what I loved about Agnes was that she's surrounded by her family, but she's very sort of, she's quite a lonely person, and her interior world starts bubbling up to the surface, I think. And I loved the way in the script that these quiet moments you got to know her, because the people around her don't really know her. So the audience gets to know her on her own.
It seems unbelievable that in the 21st century, 2018, someone would not like a cell phone, like the iPhone, or that she had never been to New York, being half an hour away by train. It led me to think that in many ways, what Mr. Turtletaub here is dealing with is like a fairy tale. It's an insight, a timeless insight into human behavior. In this case, the question that you seem to be asking yourself, which is, can I change my life here and now? So she doesn't go off into an adventure in any way. So she is figuring still out in that last train to Montreal what she's going to do. That's why the film works beautifully at the end, because it's the question is being asked, how much can I change?
Yeah, and the thing that I loved about it is like her life isn't being defined by a romantic relationship or being solved. Her problems aren't solved by a romantic relationship. And it sort of reminded me slightly of I did an animated movie called Brave, and she's a Disney princess. I played a Disney princess, but she's, I think, the only one that doesn't a man doesn't come to her rescue. It's about like Merida very much in Brave, just as she's fighting her own battles and living her own life, and in a way I saw sort of a correlation between the two women.
And what about the playing with the puzzles? How did that work? Because it looks quite convincing that she's fast and efficient, and
she is fast and efficient, and it was interesting because Irfan was not fast and efficient, and really had no interest in being fast and efficient. And Kelly, I think, took to it. So, when Irfan was puzzling, the performances, I think, are amazing. So, but Kelly took a shine to doing the puzzles, and there was always a puzzle off the set of a 1,000-piece puzzle, and after scenes she'd go over and start putting pieces in, and all the members of the crew would go over and start putting pieces in. Everyone but Irfan.
We got really involved in puzzling. We were filming the puzzle competition. That was the thing that really set us on the track to doing puzzles daily at work, because there was just tons of puzzles everywhere, and there was on the set, it was all these tables of different puzzles, so we got into it. There was me, and there was a core group of puzzlers, and we, after that, we were filming in Manhattan and in that big house, and we completed a number of puzzles.
Well, that scene in Central Station could not have been very easy to shoot.
Which one?
The in Central Station, when she gets there for the first time, discovering the world.
It's really interesting. Grand Central was interesting because there were hundreds of people right behind us, and if they listened to us, it was weird. Like we'd say, "Get back," and they'd all get back, and that's how we knew they weren't from New York. And so there was this whole crowd watching, because everybody wants to watch a movie being made. But it actually was pretty easy. They were fairly they listened.
I was going to say, because like when you're filming out in the public domain, you're not really allowed a lot of the time. You can ask people kindly to sort of stand back but really, you can't stop anyone if they're determined. There's no law against it. And Grand Central was a piece of cake compared to, I just did some filming in Scotland, in Edinburgh, on a street, and it was a total nightmare. You would think, because everybody uses it's like Grand Central Station in your sort of thing, but the main street in Edinburgh was much worse to film in, if I'm honest.
So on behalf of the Academy, thank you very much for being here with us.